What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down with a first degree black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. He's also a teacher, an instructor, Mr. Jake Watson. What is going on, Jake? How are you, brother?
Paul, it is fantastic to meet you, man. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. I love what you're doing with it. I love the goal of it, the focus of it. It's really cool. It's very humbling to be invited on a podcast such as this because I do really respect what you're doing. And so I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Dude, I'm fantastic. We just started our academy here. It's right behind me, the first Jiu-Jitsu Outlet location here in Houston, Missouri. And we had class this morning, which has been awesome. And dude, we're rocking and rolling. But man, I just wanted to start off by asking you the same question that we ask everyone on the show, whether it's an ADCC veteran like Braulio Estema or a UFC fighter, or if it's a brand new white belt who just started training or a blue belt. And that question is, how has jiu-jitsu helped your mental health since you started training?
Okay, so it's a bit of an interesting question for me. And you might have asked some people who have started when they were children, but I started training martial arts. I started training and them as a sport really when I was 8 years old, and I'm 25. So I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for that long. And it's hard to say what it's done for my mental health. And I'll have to explain it in a sort of a roundabout way, but in terms of my mental health, I really was raised on the mat. So I was raised in this lifestyle, in this lens of jujitsu. And I really didn't know anything else. I saw life through jujitsu. It wasn't like jujitsu. I lived this whole life and then I did jujitsu and it changed me. It was like I was raised through it. So jujitsu, in a way, it didn't change me. It molded me. And as I grew up, I had this amazing event happen in my life that completely radically changed the way I see life, and it changed the way I see jujitsu. But jujitsu for me, I really see jujitsu as, and I started to conceptualize it when I actually started podcasting because me and Danny O'Donnell started the Open GuardCast, and I started to think like, why do I even do this? And for me, jujitsu, I see it as like the way that you wrestle with different situations in life is sort of the way you might wrestle somebody in jujitsu, right? You look for the different openings, you look for your weak points, you try to adapt and overcome different situations, just like you would adapt and overcome a different person. So it's sort of a weird answer. I feel like until my worldview completely changed, I never even considered that jujitsu might add to or take away from how I live my life mentally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like it sounds like it gave you a great foundation for everything that you've accomplished and stuff like that. Like, where have you noticed jujitsu impacting your life off the mats, like your relationships? I know you're getting ready to become a father here soon. Like, how is this martial art and training in it since you were a kid? Like, how do you feel like that's impacted the other areas of your life?
Well, I'll tell you this. In 2019, I was hit with this. I was hit with this realization about the nature of God. I was hit with the realization that Jesus is real and that I ought to be following him. And it was a complete radical shift from the way that I was living life before. I was finding a mental satisfaction, let's call it, in beer, hard alcohol, smoking marijuana, going out and having meaningless relationships with different women. And then all of a sudden, this reality hit me. And so, what jujitsu has done is it's helped me understand. And for those of you guys, everybody's read the Bible on that's listening to the podcast, the story in Genesis where Jacob wrestled with God. And I just think like I resonate with that so hard. Not only is my name Jake, and it's not Jacob, it's actually just Jake, but I do a form of wrestling. And so in my wrestle with God, the Lord touched Jacob's hip, and it was a weak point, and it hindered Jacob. And so I got to think like, oh man, where is God touching me to reveal where I'm weak? And so I see that kind of stuff through jiu-jitsu. I see this battle and this wrestling with really against sin and against a lifestyle that I shouldn't be living. I really see jiu-jitsu through that way because shoot, man, I'll tell you what, when you start seeing what the Lord does in people's lives, and you see like people who have had a history of abuse and a history of addiction, and then you partner with them in that, it's like you're partnering with somebody in jiu-jitsu on the mat, right? Who came from some lifestyle that they had no control over. They were forced into something, or they were trafficked or something like that, and they come on the mats, and then you get to partner with them in that struggle to find this new life. And I feel like it's just a big thing that God has used me for, to be able to help people live this new life, to live like, because people come on the mats, what are they searching for? They're searching for either some people lived a desk job their whole life and they're just looking for something to get them active, and then boom, they're hit with the bug and they just do jiu-jitsu, and then all of a sudden they're a different person. Some people are literally looking for safety. They're looking for answer to their sobriety, something else to replace the addictions they had. There's a bunch of different reasons people come on the mat, and regardless of what they are, I feel like I get to be a light. And so I really see, it used to be different, but I see even my faith in a jiu-jitsu way. I see jiu-jitsu in regards to my faith, and it's been very emotionally and physically and spiritually impactful for me.
Man, that's super powerful. And it actually, you lined up one of the other questions that I had for you today so freaking perfectly, man. And this is a question that I've been asking a couple of different folks, because what I found, man, is that a lot of people in the martial arts are also very spiritual. And a lot of us, me included, like we see it through a spiritual lens, you know, and we see the martial arts and really all of life through a spiritual lens. I mean, if you understand having a close connection with God, you understand that, like, he doesn't talk just on Sundays. He's speaking all the time, you know, like it's always happening. So I wanted to ask you this, man, because I know your faith is really important to you. How do you think that God is using jiu-jitsu, like from a collective level? Like, what do you think is the main, I guess, the collective purpose here for whatever this kind of mission would be, you know, to use jiu-jitsu to help people?
Oh man, I love that question. I love that question so much. So I'll start by saying I don't see jujitsu itself as a spiritual practice, because I mean jujitsu. I don't think it's a secret that jujitsu is a martial art. Then, you know, it's not like yoga. Like yoga itself is a specifically, it was started as a spiritual experience in Hinduism, right? It started that way. And there's some people who, you know, you can try to distinguish it from that, but at the end of the day, it's started as a spiritual one. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is started less as a spiritual one and less as like more of like a physical one. I don't see martial arts as a spiritual experience. I see everything I do in my life as a spiritual experience, like you said. So jiu-jitsu itself is just another tool I feel that God can use. And the gospel of Jesus Christ is specifically predicated on everybody has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so God, in his grace, is using every single thing imaginable to bring his people to him. And so I'm this Christian guy who, yeah, I commentate on flow grappling, and yeah, I do all this stuff. And I've made several mistakes, and I have hurt my testimony, I've hurt my witness, and I've put a bad name on Jesus Christ in different instances. But look how he's using every little thing I do. Like, he brought you and I onto a podcast together just so I can give glory to his name. And you're right, God doesn't just speak on Sundays. Jiu-jitsu is Monday through Friday. And look at that. Like, I think that a lot of people have been led to believe that church is just for Sunday, but the church means the body, and it's the body of believers who actually work in the ministry of Christ. So I see how God is using jiu-jitsu. I see him raising up people who believe in him, and who not only believe in him, but who live it, who actually love people, so much that, yes, they're reminding them of their sin, and they're like showing them like, hey man, we all need a savior. I need a savior. Sharing a testimony of how God has used jujitsu to bring people, like Manuel Hebemar, dude. Manuel Hebemar is a God-fearing man. Every time I talk with him, I pray. Every time or we pray together, we're talking about scripture. We're not just doing that. We're also loving other people, hugging other people, stepping in for people who are broken and weary and you know, afflicted. I think that God is raising up people in jiu-jitsu to actually be bold, and to not only talk about him, like a lot of Christians in history have pointed the finger and been like, sinner, but they actually come in and they show like, no, this is a real thing. It's a real beautiful thing. And jiu-jitsu is so intimate. Like, you think about this, jiu-jitsu is the most intimate sport there is. You're literally wrestling with another human being that you don't know. You might not ever meet this person, but you just get on the mat and you're like, oh, what's your name, Rob? Okay, cool. Wrestle. And you're just wrestling each other. Like, as if you were best friends already. You're wrestling each other, sweating on each other, risking injury with each other, entrusting each other with your own body and the health thereof and the mental health thereof. It's like a very, very deeply intimate thing. And I think God has a plan with jiu-jitsu.
I think so too. And I think you're hitting on a big part of it, which is the community. and the friend group that forms up around it. And that's something that I've noticed. Like, if you look at all the top teams in the world, one of the main things that I've noticed they have in common is a tight knit community. Like, think about Khabib and the Dagestanis, for example. I mean, they literally grew up together, right? And I know obviously they're a different religion from what you believe, but it's the same sort of thing. Like, they have a very, very rich history with Islam, and it's very important to them. And it's like if you talk to them, that's at the center of their lives, is their relationship with how they understand God, you know. And it's the same thing that I think is formulating over here in our culture, where it's almost like it's bringing in different people and it's introducing them to ideas that might be outside of their head. Like, something that we were talking about at practice the other day is that jiu-jitsu just seems to attract really good people. Like, everyone at practice, for the most part, is a go-getter. Like, for the most part, I mean, especially the people who have been there for a long time, they're the kind of people that you would want your kids to hang out with, you know, like good role models. They're a lot of times entrepreneurs or police officers or firefighters or paramedics. And most of the martial artists I've met are spiritual. And it's usually, especially here in America, it's usually Christianity. But if you travel around and see other parts of the world, you know, you just find that commonality that no matter where people are in their religious, you know, journey, they're spiritual. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, I've met very few atheists at jiu-jitsu. For the most part, most people are spiritual. If not Christian, it's something else, you know, but it's very important to them. It's central. What do you think it is about the martial arts that like attracts so many spiritual people?
I think, well, like I said, I think it's the deep intimacy and it's the fellowship. I don't know what it is particularly about jiu-jitsu, but I'll say this. I have a firm belief that people are inherently designed to worship something. People, and what I mean by worship is, what do they give their heart's desires to? What fills their brain every day? For some people, it's their job, it's their status, it's the pursuit of money, it's business, it's jiu-jitsu, it's the Lord. And my firm assertion is that it's meant to be the Lord. But look at, like you just brought up, you know, all throughout the world, jiu-jitsu is spreading at such an alarming rate that, you know, we have Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, Catholics, Christians. All of them have representatives in the jiu-jitsu community, right? But inherently, people are spiritual. We are mind, body, and spirit. I believe that without a shadow of the doubt. I've heard so many testimonies of people who have died, and every single person who said they've died and went to heaven, they all saw the same God. So I think that people are just designed to be this way. And I think that people feel that. They feel the connection to, let's even call it, and I know the name of the higher power, but the higher power, they want a connection to it, and they feel it in fellowship. They feel that love, and they feel that togetherness. They feel like they're not alone in the group. They feel like they're a part of something. I think every human being intrinsically wants to feel included. They want to feel loved. They want to feel seen. And you are always seen realistically, but there's not a time, like imagine you're a blue belt on a mat surrounded by every color of belt, surrounded by every color of skin, surrounded by every ethnic background, and yet you're all united in love. And that is the design of the church. And we're seeing it in jiu-jitsu in such a profound way. Like, dude, you go on a mat and people wearing black gis, blue gis, white gis. People come from all sorts of walks of life, and yet they're united by what? Jiu-jitsu. And that was God's design, to people be led by his spirit and to be all included. Like, dude, I should be able to look at a Christian in Asia and freaking hug the guy and love him and be like, dude, we are cut from the same cloth. And we can do that in jiu-jitsu, but people can't do that in life. And I think that that's what it is. I think that I just answer my own question is, I think jiu-jitsu, it provides a very tangible thing that they were already designed for.
I love that, man. That's very beautifully said. And I think you're totally right. Like, I have 3 dogs, and they often are doing WrestleMania to see who's the top dog. Like, it is just constant. Awesome. You know, like it's constant, especially when they were a little younger. You know, they were always going at it, just constantly. And if you see any other animal in the world, they're always just going at it, playing, wrestling. My wife and son went to the zoo yesterday, and they were talking about watching the mountain lions and seeing the mountain lions at the zoo doing the same games that our cats do at home. And
Mm-hmm.
literally the only thing that's changed is the size of the cat, but cats are cats and they do the same thing. Like they're always whacking at each other and, trying to sneak up on each other. Yeah, they're always training. And I feel like you're right. Like there's this intrinsic thing. There's this like violent nature inside of us that needs to be exercised and it needs to be expressed. And it comes from just honestly just trying to survive in the world. Like back in the day when you and me were cavemen, we had to contend with saber-toothed tigers allegedly or whatever was out there at the time. You know what I mean? Like we had to be hard. And it's really only in the last couple of 100 years that you have not been, or it's like up until recently, just to survive, you had to be a tough dude. You had to, or a tough woman, like you had to be able to handle yourself. And it's really just in like the 1900s is when it started. Well, it's not even that old, honestly. It's really like after World War II, it seems to be when it
Yeah.
kind of set in this kind of malaise. And I think that jiu-jitsu is the antidote. But I wanted to ask you, man, like you've done a lot of work with flow grappling. You've met a lot of martial artists. You've been in the martial arts since you were a kid. Like, what do you think jiu-jitsu can do for the world as it keeps expanding and growing and as we head into the mainstream?
My hope is that it will never become more than a tool. That's my hope. And like you said earlier, you think jiu-jitsu is the antidote. I think it is a form of an antidote. I think that we could easily, not easily, but I think that it can be said that let's say people found the same intimate enjoyment in getting together and everybody playing football. Now, it's not as intimate, right? But people don't go outside very much. There's something I think we need to isolate. What is it about jiu-jitsu? It's the pursuit of improvement is what it is. I think people coming together and collectively working to improve themselves and feeling like they're not only a part of a team, but encouraged to be individual. That is the source. That is, if we could specify it, there's not a lot like jujitsu. But we also saw, I believe, the same thing in judo. Like if you have judo people listening to your podcast, they'll probably be like, man, judo is the same thing. Why does everybody talk about jiu-jitsu? Judo is kind of the same thing. But here's how it's not. You can't do judo super effectively the way you want to usually in your 40s, right? But people can be 50 years old doing jiu-jitsu every single day because jiu-jitsu has different things about it that can be more safe. I don't know a single 50-year-old that wants to get hit with an Ippon Seonagi. I do not know any of them. And I do know a 50-year-old who does Ippon Seonagis and he still doesn't want to get hit with them. So it's I think that we have to label it that. And you're right. In the last 100 years, man, it has changed. And I think that is what we're seeing is why would the world be the way it is for so long and then only change in the 1900s? I think it speaks to an objective morality, and that objective morality leads to, okay, well, now we can isolate what jiu-jitsu is and it doesn't have to change. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to say like, oh, in 100 years people won't like the things jiu-jitsu offers, because really people always desire fellowship. People always desire improvement intrinsically. People are taught to not want to improve themselves. I truly believe that. And that's in the last 100 years. We tell people, oh, you can just order food and it'll come to you. Oh, you can work from home only. You can just sit at a computer. Like, not that those are bad things inherently, but if that is like where you feel your worth ends, that I think is where it's like, no, you are designed to improve. You're designed to increase. You're designed to be strong and bold. And like, these are just things. And it looks differently for man and woman. But I think that jiu-jitsu is not just the antidote, but what jiu-jitsu provides is the antidote. We need people in fellowship with one another. We need people seeking to improve themselves, because if morality is objective and you seek to improve yourself, you're going to eventually come to the top of the pyramid of understanding. It's not going to be like this big cylinder that you're like, well, I guess I'll never understand. I guess I'm just going to be confused my entire life. I don't believe in that. I can't believe in that.
I feel the same, man. Like you're speaking my language for real. You're speaking of Kaizen, the constant search for improvement. And I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is the core of like what the martial arts is,
Yeah,
it's
it's always
powerful.
offered to you. It's
Yeah.
always offered to you. There is a depth of knowledge in this world that is so unbelievably vast that we could never even hope to imagine it. And you can either be prideful and search for it your entire life, thinking you can attain it, which I think is actually devaluing, or you can be humble and you can realize that you're not going to know everything. And then you search for, well, who does? And then that's the search. So, well, who does know everything? Who can I trust? Who can I trust to lead me? because really I think we're not only made for fellowship, but we're made to be led as well. Like that, like I said, we're made to worship. So then you think like, well, man, how I don't know everything. I can't know everything, but who does know everything? And then you search for that. That's why we follow instructors, right? Black belts, we go and we look for people to teach us jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I think that a lot of times we place that on the wrong thing. You know, we try to we make other people on a pedestal, and we
Oh yeah.
pretend like they've got all the answers, and then we're surprised when they fall short. When actually, like you said, everyone has issues. You know, everyone's fallen short. And
Oh yeah.
it's true. Like I've fallen short many a time in my life, but that doesn't mean that you. I guess what I'm saying is, I think that when you start to realign your priorities and you align it more on the divine and on the divine relationship that you can have with God, that's when things start to click. At least that's when it clicked for me, was when I started to not look necessarily outside of myself, but go within and start to have that relationship with the divine, you know, and realizing that you can talk to God whenever you want, you know, like it's just a prayer away, or as they say. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I think that for me has been a big lesson of the martial arts, is that, and it's weird to kind of how they work like this, but for me, it's almost like provided this quieting effect, and it allows you to go deeper within. And it's interesting that you talked about yoga, because I did a yoga certification when I was in the Army. The Army actually has a yoga program, by the way. Like a lot of people don't
That is
know that,
very
but
interesting.
they paid for me to go get certified at yoga as an official
Wow.
in the official Army yoga program.
Mm-hmm.
And that in the program, they brought in like actual yoga teachers, not Army people. And it was really fun to watch how they kind of subtly would sink in the spiritual stuff. But you're
Mm-hmm.
totally right that yoga at its core is a spiritual practice. And if you go and talk to a real yoga person, they will tell you that. And from my perspective, a good yogi will not put their own religious beliefs on it, because yoga for me is just about balance. But one of the things that they told us is that when yoga was first created, the whole point of the poses was just to quiet your mind and quiet your body so that afterwards you could go deep in your prayer, because that's the real purpose, is to
Mm-hmm.
quiet yourself. And that's what jiu-jitsu has done for me. It's done that same sort of thing, but for because honestly, yoga, I don't know. I think it's the autism or maybe the OCD, but I've got too much energy just for yoga. Like yoga doesn't quite do it for me. I do yoga to warm up for jujitsu. Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, but jujitsu, it's like a shower for the soul. Like it just cleanses everything. And then after I'm done, I'm just like, man, ready to go lay in my hammock and talk to God. And, you know, like
Oh,
it
that's cool.
allows you to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
deep and have that sort of a connection. But I just want to ask you just a little bit more about that. Like, where do you feel like jujitsu has? I mean, we've been talking about this a bit, but where do you feel like jujitsu has kind of helped you have a more spiritual life or a more spiritual connection to others?
Well, the Lord used jujitsu to bring about certain people in my life, first of all. So I started karate and then I got into jujitsu a little bit later. And my professor, Under Maracaba, he was the best man at my wedding. He was, he's been in my life since I was a kid. And I I met certain people along the way that led me further and further and like that he would bring about a pastor who came on the mat. And right now I got a pastor. I'm gonna name drop him. He preaches at Calvary Chapel Church here in Arizona, and he trains at the gym. And I teach him jujitsu. His name's Tony Crockett. And I didn't even know this guy was a pastor, but the Lord brought him into my life to show me something about the Word of God I didn't understand before. And now I read Scripture differently. I read Scripture like the Lord revealed something in his word through that man, and now that boosted my faith a little bit. And then I go and I was training with Tim McClellan, who was a coach of some NFL quarterbacks, and he's a man of God. And I remember he was the one who encouraged me to get baptized, and I was like, all right. And then I went and get, and that was how that all came about. And he introduced me to a guy named Eric Fish. So this is a bunch of different people come into my life through my experience with jiu-jitsu, but the practice of jiu-jitsu itself, for me, I've had a few different opinions of it. It used to be in the most unhealthy way, purely competitive. I just wanted to win so bad. But I realized that my desire to win was the desire to prove myself. And the desire to prove myself came from my biological mom leaving when I was 6 years old, and my dad just being super hard, right? And I love my dad to death, by the way. But he was hard on us. He wanted us to be excellent because he was, his dad wasn't there for him, and he just wanted us to be excellent so that we could be the best that we could. And so I felt like I always had to prove myself. And so once I realized, and the Lord brought me through this, like, you don't need to prove yourself anymore. I've already made you righteous, right? Like by my stripes, you've been healed already. And so I was like, man, then why do I want to compete? So I took a year and a half off competition. I just recently competed the ADCC Tijuana Open, and I'll explain my experience there too, because it was way different. I literally got off the mat and was like, huh. But I used to compete and just think, I gotta win. And that was up until the pandemic, where I really encountered the Lord deeply. But I used to think just competition. Then it turned into, well, okay, now I really don't like it anymore. Like now I'm like, I don't want to compete. I kind of don't want to train. And then I realized, no, the God has something for me in jiu-jitsu, and I'm going to compete for fun. And I'm specifically going to go out and I'm going to use these tournaments as experiences to build this humility in me. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to grapple exactly how I want to. I'm not going to go out there to win. I'm going to go out there to have fun and put on a show. And like, I think I should do that. Like I should go out there and grapple differently for the first time in my life. So I went to ADCC Tijuana and I grappled against Joey Balistreri first round, very good 10th planet at the time, purple belt. And this guy's huge. And I went out there and I was super tired, but I was having fun. I went for a back take and it worked. And then I went for something else and it didn't work. And I got off the mat and I won. And I was like, okay, I'm really, really tired. I go to the second match. I get ankle locked in 20 seconds by Sebastian Attard of New Wave. And I got off the mat and I was like, you know what? The temptation to be kind of upset was there, but I was like, this is different. I'm okay with this. Like, I'm okay with losing. Like, and then I lost the third match too to Dorian, who just won double gold or quadruple gold, I think, at the American National Championship at brown belt. And I lost to him by heel hook. And I just got off the mat. And I was like, this is different. Like I'm not enveloped by my feelings toward this anymore. I can now fully enjoy jiu-jitsu as a sport, as something I like doing. And I think that was the development for me. I'm sorry. I also have this thing where I just get lost in a thought. And I don't know if that is helpful. I think it's helpful. I've been told it's helpful for podcasts because it fills the air, but I feel like I have such a hard time paying attention fully.
But dude, I watched that video of you competing at the ADCC, and it looked like you were having a lot of fun. Like that was one of the first things I thought was that you looked like you were very dynamic. You know, like you were going for some cool moves. Like you were kind of trying, like you said, you're trying to put on a show, and you did. Like that video was dope, man. That video was pretty dope. And so I could tell you were having fun. You know, and that's something I've tried to do more in competition too. Like I used to just get so anxious about it. And now I'm just like, no, like it's like what Danaher says is, it's just like every other day in the training room. Like it's just another day. It's just an open mat, basically a glorified open mat, really, with a referee involved. And that's it.
Yeah. I like that. And, like he's got a degree in psychology, I believe. And there's a reason why he's one of the best coaches in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is because he breaks it down in a way that's easy for humans to understand. You should look at a tournament the exact same way you do as training, because if you don't, you're doing yourself a disservice. We can prepare and get our bodies in shape and be ready for the day. But at the end of the day, like, why does Cade Ruotolo and Ty Ruotolo do so good? It's because they grapple exactly the same all the time. They never change. They never change their game plan. They never go out there and look like they're rattled or nervous. They just look focused. They look like they're going out there and doing their game best they can. Why does freaking Mika Galvão look so good? Same thing. Why is Andrew Tackett like one of the most exciting competitors in the world, really, to watch? It's because he goes out there and he has a freaking ball. He goes out there and has a blast, and you can see it. And I just want to have fun. I want to have fun with jiu-jitsu again.
Man, I love that. Jake, this has been a great conversation, man. I really appreciate you. Can you tell us a little bit more if someone's listening and they want to follow what you're doing and they want to keep up with your show? Tell us, where can they find you, man?
All right. So my Instagram is @JakeWatsonMedia. I'm kind of not using other social medias right now. I'm kind of just sticking to Instagram because I don't know. The Twitter is hard to keep up with. And there's just people post really sad stuff on Twitter, dude. Like there's just so much news and politics. And I'm just like, dude, why do you like go to Facebook, man? But I also have YouTube. It's that same thing @JakeWatsonMedia. I post videos of the podcast and everything I do, which is the Open GuardCast. I commentate usually a lot of the big shows. So like Who's Number One's coming up on August 10th. I'll be doing the pre-show and the post-show for that one. I won't be commentating. I'll be doing the IBJJF Absolute Grand Prix in Las Vegas, Nevada, You'll probably hear me on other shows in between here and there. I'm also commentating Muay Thai shows now too. So I'm not just a BJJ commentator. I am a combat sports commentator now.
Dude, that's awesome. Well,
A
congrats.
little more dignified. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty
awesome.
excited. You know, you want to talk about a spiritual experience. A lot of people treat Muay Thai as a spiritual experience. It's like crazy. You see like these pre-fight rituals and the dancing and the music, and you're like, dude, this is like straight up. This looks like a religious activity. But that's a conversation for perhaps next time.
Yeah, dude.
We talk. But
they're going to war for sure. They're going to war.
It's crazy. It's crazy, dude. They fight so hard. There was a guy, shout out to David Fisher, the only guy who scored a knockout on the night. That was crazy. He threw a left hook and knocked the dude out cold. I was like, man, that's a mean kid. But yeah, that's where you guys can follow me. The Open GuardCast is dedicated to promoting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I usually get on there. I talk alone right now because getting guests is typically not something I'm taking the time to do. I mean, like I said, I'm having a baby very soon. Well, my wife is, and I'm going to be,
you'll be there.
The baby's going to be here very soon. And I have shows and I'm teaching private lessons and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to keep myself busy to be, everything I can be. But that's where you guys can follow me.
Well, if you're listening, I'll put all the links to where you can find Jake down below. So make sure you click those links and click the next button that says subscribe or follow. So 2 buttons involved. So my friend Jake, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. You're the man.
All right.
Thank you, brother.